All right, so welcome to the Regenerative Video Chats. Normally we start with a short round of introductions, so name, organization, location, and what you want to talk about today to help us guide the conversation. So Adam, I don't know if you want to start. You're the first one on my screen.
Okay, my name is Adam Sachs. The organization is Biodiversity for a Livable Climate, and we talk about restoring ecosystems to reverse global warming. We just had our 6th conference in the past year and a half at Harvard called The Power and Promise of Biodiversity and Visions of Restoring Land, Sea, and Climate, which was a great success, as it turns out. And we're planning another one for the fall on oceans. And we're also working on ways to leverage our organizational contacts to have other organizations adopt our message as is appropriate to that organization's mission.
Nice, thanks Adam. You're on mute there. Or I was on mute, sorry. So next we have Judy.
Hi, my name is Judy Schwartz, and I'm an author journalist, and I've been focusing on ecological restoration as a means for addressing so many of our problems, our global challenges. And I wrote a book called Cows Save the Planet, and I have a book coming out called Water in Plain Sight, Hope for a Thirsty World. And my goal here is to be able to to build on whatever opportunities that I have, that having a book launch and, media and whatever comes of that, for me to help promote this work, and also to work on pitching some related stories, making sure it stays in the public eye. And one thing I'll mention, I don't know if anyone's going to mention this, but within the past week, there have been several high-profile articles on soil and climate. I mean, I've been reading these things, especially in the New York Times. Just like 2 years ago, I had to beg to publish on this, and now it's all over. I don't see it changing the overall conversation about climate right now, but it's just really encouraging to see.
Yeah, I have to say that when I first started working with RI and publishing all of these articles on regeneration, in the past month or two, it's increased significantly the amount that I'm seeing in mainstream media. So it's really encouraging. Thanks for that, Judy. And Storm.
Yes, hi. My apologies again for not having my working video camera here, but I'll fix that next time around. My first book was The Restoration Economy back in 2002, and it was the first time that all of the various disciplines and industries that are restoring different aspects of our natural and built environment were all brought together and looked at as a discrete growth trend and economy. I had a second book from McGraw-Hill in 2008 called Rewealth, which was more about, well, if you think of all the different kinds of restoration activities that were in the first book as ingredients of revitalization, the second book was more the recipe for revitalization. How do you put together the agricultural regeneration, watershed restoration, historic building reuse and restoration, infrastructure renewal, fisheries restoration? How do you, brownfields remediation? How do you put all that together to get what most communities really want, which is revitalization? And my third book will be coming out late next year. It's called Revitalizing Careers, which is a double entendre. It's careers that revitalize the people, but also careers that revitalize the world. And I guess the main reason I wanted to stop in on the chat here was, I'm hungry for content, because another thing I'm doing right now is I publish Revitalization News at revitalizationnews.com, and it comes out twice a month, and each issue has about 100 articles in it, mostly excerpts of other people's articles with links to the full articles. There's some original content too. And multiple pages, for like upcoming events and, educational opportunities, volunteer opportunities, jobs, funding, lots of different stuff besides the news page. So if you've got any upcoming events you want to publicize, if it has anything to do with RE, anything that starts with RE, except maybe a Republican in religion, then go ahead and send it along. And I'll, whether it's an event or a training session or a project you're working on, any kind of publicity that you need that's got to do with restoring or revitalizing the world, just email it to me, storm@revitalize.com. It's revitalize without the E on the end of it. And
I'm sorry, I thought you said it was revitalizationnews.com.
Right, and my email address is storm.
Storm@
revitalize.com without the E on the end of revitalize.
Nice. Thanks, Storm. We're doing something similar with events, so feel free to visit RI's regenerationinternational.org/events, and you're welcome to republish those.
All right.
Yeah, I seem to have an alarm going off. I'll be back in a sec, but Valeria, go for it. I'll be right back.
Hello, I am Valeria. As Alex told, I worked with Organic Consumers Association, but here in Mexico City. And well, this is my first time, so I want to hear about all you will be talking about. And my main interest is to collaborate with Alex and try to link all the great projects that in Mexico are existing in some ways that could be very close to that thing in English. I don't know how to say that. And that's it. I'm here to listen and try to link with all your efforts.
Valeria, that sounds like that would be an extremely valuable resource for the rest of us. I look forward to seeing it.
I'm also very excited about that.
Good.
Yes, I will be here.
Valeria, can you hear me? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Mi esposa es de DF.
Muy bien.
So we spend about 2 months every year in Mexico, and usually pass through Mexico City on the way to Oaxaca, Chiapas, or Mazatlan, or wherever we're going. So if there are any projects you'd like me to see next time I'm down there, or photograph and get into the magazine, just let me know and we can get together.
Great. We can do a lot of very great things. Yes, I will be very happy to do that.
Okay. Let me make sure I get your email address so we can get properly connected.
Yes, I will put it in the chat here also.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to put it in the chat, and I can also put it in the note document that I shared. And you're also all connected in the link that I sent out by email. Great. So thanks Valeria, and thanks everyone for joining. So I'm Alex. I'm working for Regeneration International, and I'm also interested in just listening and connecting with you all. Specifically today, I wanted to ask if anyone has heard anything about COP22. And then Storm, regarding visiting revitalization projects in Mexico, we're actually building out a kind of a story map of projects. I was just at a Agrarians workshop in Mexico in Sierra Gorda, and there was a lot of restoration projects at this event. So I will definitely share with you that map, and then you could visit those projects and as applicable to your work. So that would be really, really awesome. Thanks for
all right, excellent.
Thanks for all that you do. So normally, now that we've finished our round of introductions, we kind of just dive into what you guys were interested in talking about.
Alex, you mentioned COP22.
Yes.
Okay. So just to let you know, I enjoyed very much those 2 articles by Ursilia and Precious. I think they're really important, and I'm just aware, knowing the journalistic landscape, that, like everyone kind of spent their, climate attention on COP21. It was in Paris after all. And No, I just concerned that this is not going to get much attention. I did send yesterday a pitch to the New York Times Magazine about COP22, the Africa COP. I came very close with this editor of doing a piece, a profile of Stefan Lafall, and I'm really, really hoping that I get some response. If I don't, I'm hoping I can do it for them. If not, I will take the same pitch and work with the Food and Environment Reporting Network and see what I can do, because I don't know how much background you all have about this, about the 4 per 1,000 initiative. If anyone, I don't know if you all know about that. Let me know if you would like that explained. Storm, do you know about the 4 per 1,000?
No, actually, I don't.
Okay.
I was afraid to admit to my ignorance.
No.
We were actually, Judy, we were actually, Precious and Ercilia were actually on the call last
weeks
time.
ago. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
They were at COP22.
Oh, wow.
So COP22 is in November, but they were at a meeting. Well,
preliminary
they're at a meeting of the French government for the 4 per 1,000 initiative. But Judy, go for it. What is the 4 per 1,000 initiative?
Okay. So while everyone was paying attention to negotiations about how much, how fossil fuel emissions, there was this French initiative by the French agriculture minister called 4 per 1,000, which is about drawing down carbon into the soil. Okay, so 4 per 1,000, and it's a tiny, tiny amount, but that was picked as what was achievable across landscapes, and also that would basically, correct me if I'm wrong, negate all of the emissions in a year, or was it only from agriculture? Alex? I forget.
I forget as well. I thought it was, I can't speak to that.
Okay,
100%.
Anyway, the main gist of it is that agriculture was brought into the climate conversation. Okay, and this got a little bit of press, as a solution. And that got a little bit of press, but not much, because that wasn't, on the grandstand. But it's really important, as 31 countries are signatories now. The US is not, Mexico is, Canada is not, Australia is. I mean, through Regeneration International, you can see a list of them. But there are efforts to put pressure on different, like the state of California, for example, to sign on. But the 4 per 1,000, the reason that this is important in this context is that for COP22, it's taking place in Africa. Agriculture is going to be central to the discussions, and the concerns of African nations are going to come to the fore. And as Precious pointed out in her piece, 60% of the world's arable land is in Africa. What she didn't say, which concerns me greatly, is that much of this is being bought up by international corporations. So the well-being of this land has a lot to do with the well-being of all of us, and to have that part of the solution. And when you draw down carbon into the soil, then you're also holding water, you're building fertility, you're stopping erosion, all these other co-benefits. So this is why I hope that we're able to draw some attention to this effort, because it does promise to be important on a global level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, just to interrupt for a second to welcome Sudhir. Hi, Sudhir. I'm Alex from RI.
Hi.
Just
Thanks.
a heads up, you're being recorded, so we're recording these video chats in order to make the information more accessible to others who are unable to make it. I don't know if you want to give a quick intro, and then we can jump back. We're just talking about 4 per 1,000 initiative, so just to give you a chance to.
Yeah, I'm Sudhir Shukla. I'm with Biodiversity for Livable Climate in the DC chapter. Yeah, so I guess I kind of focus on outreach there, trying to make connections in the DC area as well as nationally and to some extent internationally.
Nice. Thanks for joining us, Sudhir.
Sure.
We've also got, so I guess you know Adam and probably Judy as well, and Storm Cunningham from Revitalization News, and then Valeria Enriquez in DFA, Mexico City, with the Organic Consumers Association Mexico team. So glad you could join. But so back to 4 per 1,000. So the COP22 in November in Morocco is being dubbed a COP of action. So supposedly, I don't know exactly what that means, but it'll be more action oriented rather than negotiation oriented. I don't know if anybody's heard of any other activities going on or plans or campaigns.
Can I just say something about the 4 per 1,000? Because a lot of people are confused by it, including me. And last call, we asked Precious and Ercilia about clarifying it, and they said that there was a lot of confusion about it. And as near as I can figure out, somebody is moving stuff around. Could you put it on mute, maybe?
I think Storm, maybe could you mute your mic, please? On the bottom left. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So 4 per 1,000, that's 0.4%. Presumably by weight. 0.4% increase in soil organic carbon. I don't think it's soil organic matter, but correct me if I'm wrong. So 0.4% of soil organic carbon to me means per year, means in 5 years you've increased your soil organic carbon by 2%. Okay, now as I'm talking, something is becoming clearer because we talk about a 2%, no, still confused. 2% increase in soil organic carbon is enough to offset global emissions. At least I think that's what Ratan Lal said a while ago. So that 0.4% is not a trivial amount, even though it sounds small. If I'm understanding it correctly, I have not been able to find a cogent explanation of that anywhere. But that's how I understand it at the moment. I'd be interested in knowing if there's more light to be shed.
Yeah, Adam, I think you're right about it being soil carbon rather than soil organic matter. I asked that question at the March 9th Regeneration International workshop in DC on regenerative agriculture and climate change, and the minister from France, Valérie Vion, she said it was carbon rather than organic matter.
So does that mean we are getting a 2% increase in soil organic carbon in 5 years?
I think so.
That, as I understand it, is actually a lot of carbon.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep going in that direction, it seems to me that we should hit a point in not terribly long time where we're starting to sequester legacy carbon as well as annual carbon.
But then you'll have to have that period where the oceans release the carbon that they've absorbed as well, right? Does anyone know how long?
Well, the oceans are a whole other part of the equation. But just sticking with terrestrial soils for a minute. I mean, what's going to happen with the oceans with heat and as well as carbon and the equilibria there, I think are really complicated. I don't know that anybody knows, but I'm sure that people know a lot better than I do. But whether the oceans are offsetting for a while, whatever we're putting in or not, we still have to keep putting in for many reasons, as Judy mentioned. I'm just trying to clarify the actual terrestrial impacts. So it seems to be getting clearer, and maybe if I ever get a hold of a French agricultural ambassador, I'll have a clearer idea of what questions to ask. But if you can figure out anything more, Sudhir, or anybody else, that would be great.
Yeah, I can try to contact people at the French embassy. Christophe Malvazin at the embassy, he's been very quick in replying to emails, and he's very yeah. I can talk to him.
Why don't you copy that correspondence to all of us so we can, or just send us the results. The question is, are we accruing 2% more organic carbon every 5 years? And does that eventually take us beyond just negating current emissions?
That's a good question. We'll have to follow up. And Sudhir, I look forward to the response. It would be great if you could copy us on that so we can all learn.
Would anybody be interested in hearing about a way of sequestering carbon in the ocean, or would that be too off topic?
Not at all.
The thing that got me involved in all this restoration stuff was a week of volunteer work I did for a German scientist named Wolf Hilberts back in the early 90s. He was working down in Jamaica to restore the coral reefs. And he'd invented a fascinating technology that's highly replicable. His partner is still working on this technology in the South Pacific, Fiji, I think. And Wolf himself has passed on. But here's how it works. They take chicken wire or any kind of metal fabric, form it into whatever shape they want. They put an anode on one end, a cathode on the other, and float a very small solar panel on a buoy on the surface. That small solar panel passes a small charge through the metal, which causes the calcium carbonate to accrete on the metal at a very, very rapid rate. You come back a year from then, and you've got basically a calcium carbonate structure that has already started to aggregate all kinds of sea life, because sea life is always desperate for new surface to colonize.
Yep.
And it's just amazing how fast a desolate, barren, sandy seafloor can turn into a wildlife-rich area using this in the process of creating these calcium carbonate structures. You're looking to solve the acidification problem. You're creating habitat at the same time, so it's a triple.
So
win.
was his cohort Tom Goreau?
Yeah, I was going to
Yes,
ask.
exactly.
Exactly. Yes.
I was like, that sounds like Tom.
Right. We know Tom really well.
Okay.
He's on our advisory board. He's spoken at several of our conferences, and he lives in Cambridge, where is the area that.
I'm speaking to the converted.
That's fine.
I knew Tom and Wolf way back, before they had started publicizing any of their work.
Yeah.
Helping them. They needed scuba divers to help plant these things on the ocean floor. So I got a chance to do something good and have fun at the same time.
Well, Tom is still doing this, and he's teaching it all around the world among all the other things that he does. I don't think he considers it a major carbon sequestration process. And its effect on corals is temporary. The low voltage does precipitate the calcium carbonate, but it doesn't. It needs the continuous electrical input in order to survive in warmer waters. So it's a very effective but temporary, apparently relatively temporary solution. And the hope is that they can keep the corals alive while we solve the global warming problem. We got to try. And as I understand it, the problems with coral death have to do more with heat than with acidification. And that a certain process happens in the polyps, and the algae component becomes starts to produce toxic metabolites when the temperature goes up a degree or 2 centigrade. So that's what causes the coral destruction. But it certainly is a step to take. Now, what Tom has told us, which seems to be a prevailing opinion, is that the oceans in general are not a great carbon sink as far as, I mean, the ocean floor stores more carbon than anything else, any other Earth surface system, but as an active sink, apparently the metabolic processes offset the sequestration processes, and so.
But so Adam or others, what can you say to speak to?
Let me just finish the thought. So the prevailing opinion is that ocean restoration per se is not necessarily a climate solution. However, we're doing an oceans conference in the fall, and whenever we do a conference, we dig for stuff. So we're hoping to come up with things that indicate there are aspects of ocean restoration that are a significant climate solution. And we've got some hints, but like with so many other things, we're going against the flow in questioning this, but we'll see what we find out.
So quick question here. Obviously, I've been way out of touch with Tom for a long, long time.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure he'd be happy to hear from you. He never forgets anybody.
Yeah. One of the things we discussed way back then, this is like 25 years ago, was the fact that a lot of coastal villages in the tropics, got their building materials by chopping up reefs and turning them into blocks. And they were talking about using this technology to form structures, like walls and things that could be done. And that would solve the problem of having the calcium carbonate redissolved back into the ocean again if you're taking it out of the ocean.
Sure.
The same way that harvesting algae pulls nutrients out of water.
Mm-hmm. So you're recreating the cliffs of Dover, in effect.
Por supuesto.
Por supuesto.
But so what I was going to ask is, so say, for example, if this 4 per 1,000 initiative were implemented globally and we did succeed at sequestering the amount of carbon that is necessary to offset all of our global emissions and kind of cool the planet. So if we go back to 290 parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere, what would be the response of the oceans? I've heard through Judy, through Walter Jenne and Cindy, that they would need to release their carbon, the excess carbon that they've absorbed, but I don't have a very good understanding of this process, and I wonder if anybody here does or could explain it a little better. Dee Dee mentions it in her book, The Ecology of Care, that the oceans will need to release their carbon, but...
Well, it's about equilibrium.
Okay.
Right? If you have a higher concentration of something on one side of a permeable membrane, the energetics of the situation are going to want to balance the concentrations so that in a simple system, the higher concentration of sodium chloride or salt on one side will move over to the other side until they're the same. And that's kind of the idea, but this is a much more complex system. So exactly how that plays out, people I think are investigating it. I don't know what they're coming up with. I don't know what the latest is, and it's actually two pieces to it. One is the carbon concentrations, and the other is the heat. And as the oceans warm up, the gases become less soluble, so they stay in the ocean less. So if the ocean cools, then it'll hold the gases better, and it's an equilibrium with the carbonic acid and all that sort, not carbonic acid, bicarbonates. So
Complex.
yeah, no, it is carbonic acid. Sorry. So it's really complicated, and we're dealing with all kinds of unknowns, and that shouldn't stop us from doing what we know insofar as possible to be best practices. I mean, people are always saying, well, how much carbon is being stored in your land? And what Jim Laurie likes to say is, that's the wrong question. The right question is the land getting better? Is the biodiversity coming back? The carbon situation is a symptom of the biodiversity and the health of the life support system going awry. So if we fix the life support system, other things, I think,
will come together.
Yeah, it's a safe presumption that a lot of other things will come together. And we see it all the time in all of our regeneration efforts in a wide variety of systems.
Yeah, I mean, Storm, you've documented a ton of case studies on that. And I mean, Judy, you've been researching that for your books, and you've seen the success of using regenerative practices to restore the land. So it's definitely important for us to continue doing that and scale up. That's one of the questions that comes up a lot on these calls, is how do we scale up globally and transition all land to regenerative agriculture, all arable land. And yeah, maybe the 4 per 1,000 initiative is going to be the way to do this.
I think it certainly is a boost, certainly is a big boost. The conversation, as you and Judy have noted, has completely changed in the past few months to a year. I mean, it's just remarkable.
I would be interested to hear from Valeria. Valeria, have you found that the climate conversation has changed in Latin America at all as a result? Can you understand?
Yeah, I understand, but I think that it doesn't. I think here the conversation is still the same that years ago, but I am not in the climate change movement very close. So in my space, that is not specifically climate change, I think it's the same conversation that years ago.
Well, and what is the conversation as you see it?
Like catastrophic issues, like a lot of skepticism. I don't know if that is the skeptic about a lot of people, like we can't do anything about climate change. Another group is like it's only like business or only institutional matters, like well, I don't know, the World Bank and IDB institutions in Mexico years ago, they initiate or start a lot of public policies in government. So it's like something very big, but very slow knowledge and of that.
So in the regenerative land management business that we're in, we have a big advantage, and that's that we don't even have to talk about global warming. We can, but we don't have to. We can just talk about all the benefits of regenerating your soils and your land, and the climate benefits will be automatic. But it also helps to change the climate conversation as well, and that's what we've been working on for the past 2 or 3 years, and we could talk about it offline more if you want to.
Yeah, I think that is that issue is very important, because here is like a very big problem that doesn't have solution, but also are a lot of programs, public programs and other things, but it's not. We don't have that view that is that there is the solution available, easy. Nobody knows about that, and I think nobody believes it really.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And when we started giving conferences a year and a half ago, and Sudhir was at our first conference, and Ronnie was there, people came in, and it was all about, oh my God, this emissions thing isn't working. And all of a sudden, they had a whole different set of possibilities, and they just and Sadir left that with 2 other people who were at the conference, and they went down and eventually formed our DC chapter, and are doing great work down there, opening up possibilities. I mean, that is at the heart of this. Is that look, we can do this, we've done it, et cetera, and so forth.
And I mean, Storm, you've been how long has Revitalization News been going for, and have you seen your subscription base grow, or an increasing number of people interested in hearing these types of stories? Or
yeah, we haven't. The magazine is only a little over a year old. It's got about 2,300 articles in it now. If you click on the library page, there's also a map at the very bottom of the page. You can see the 2,300 articles arranged geographically around the world, and you can also select them as far as the content, whether it's jobs or funding or news or whatever it might be, or education. But I think we're getting probably about 15 to 20,000 reads a month right now. But right now I'm still basically building it up. I've never spent a penny on publicity. I figure probably at the beginning of the second year, I'm actually going to spend time starting to publicize it. So right now, most people only know about it through word of mouth or social media.
Well, we'll certainly put it up on our Facebook page.
Oh, thank you. By the way, I'll post a link here. You were talking about not having to focus directly on climate change, just by focusing on regeneration. And that's one of the points I've made in a economic resilience strategy guide that I just wrote. I'm going to put the link on there in case any of you are looking to engage government figures or business people, community leaders, mayors, or whatever, in getting more regenerative. The strategy guide that I'm going to post might help you, give you some ideas as to how to make the link and show them that by revitalizing their community, they will also be addressing climate change, so they don't stick them in 2 separate silos.
Yeah, please do share the link to that. I've seen that on your website before.
Storm, you seem like a gold mine of resources.
Yeah.
Gold mines are quite toxic, aren't they?
Only when we dig them up and expose them to the light.
So we won't do that. This kind of reminds me of Storm. Have you heard much about keyline design? I was just at a workshop with Darren Doherty and Agrarians, and he really emphasizes the importance of harvesting water from the landscape. So designing communities and farms, and even if we could design cities on such a large scale, but just to harvest rainwater more effectively so it doesn't get lost, and how critical that can be for water security. Have you come across much of that in your?
I haven't heard of that particular. Was that a company or an organization? Keyline?
That's a methodology.
Key lime. Okay, I thought you meant key lime as in pie.
Key lime, like pie.
Yeah, it sequesters a lot of carbon that way.
It sounds delicious.
No, I'm not familiar with that particular one. I get a little nervous when people get a little too enthusiastic about harvesting water. I mean, yes, it's wonderful to use water more intelligently, and correct a lot of the ways in which we've disconnected our water flows throughout the world, with dams and levees and all this kind of stuff. But if you take it too far, you get into a situation like in India, where there's, I forget who it was now, some very famous old wise man from centuries ago once said something along the lines of how if you're developing properly, not a drop of water will reach the sea.
Right.
In other words, use it all.
Yes. Or as Brock Dolman says, slow it, spread it, sink it.
Mm-hmm.
And just as an FYI, we did a Restoring Water Cycles to Reverse Global Warming conference last October, and we had Regenerative and and a number of other water experts, and we're talking about some very natural and productive ways of harvesting water. So it can be done poorly, for sure, but there are also lots of very local and sustainable ways of doing it well. So all of those videos are online on our website, and yeah, Judy was there, and Sudhir was there, and it's huge what we can do by managing what Michael Krafchek calls the small water cycle. Are you familiar with Michael's work, Storm? Michael Krafchek?
The name rings a bell, but no, I'm not familiar with this
So
work.
if you Google New Water Paradigm, you'll come up with his book, which is online as a PDF. It's really a great book, and it's got a lot of very good illustrations. Judy, do you want to talk to that for a minute? We first found out about Michael from reading How to Save the Planet.
Gosh, what should I share? Okay, so the way I think about it is that whereas in terms of climate change, using the soil as a means of bringing carbon down into the into the ground was kind of the edge of a new way of addressing climate change. I see now using the water cycle as like where we need to start thinking about it. And I'd say in addition to Michael, Walter Jenne is so powerful about this material. In short, what he talks about, and I do have a lot of this in my new book, is that we can use the cooling processes of water in order to manage heat to bide time to bring down the CO2 levels. So by not talking about water, we have missed huge opportunities. Like when we talk about our water challenges, what we tend not to talk about are processes like transpiration, infiltration, and condensation. But by working with these, we can do a lot.
Yeah, water cools the biosphere. That's what makes deserts swing so widely in temperature, as opposed to temperate climates where there are lots of green plants and transpiration going on.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading your book, Judy, and I'll definitely check out the New Water Paradigm as well. Thanks for sharing that, Valeria. So just looking at the clock, we've got about 7 minutes left. I don't know if anyone has any last words or anything they want to cover before our quick Spanish lesson.
Necesitamos hablar español.
Sí. Ok. Podemos terminar la llamada en español.
Sí, podemos hablar en español.
Last week I talked with Laura Perez Ars of Sierra Gorda, and that's actually a Savory Institute hub. Unfortunately, renewable need doesn't recognize at all the potential for soil to draw carbon, and so their climate change plans are completely emissions based right now. So that's kind of one problem she's running into.
That's pretty much the case in the U.S. too.
But Mexico is a signatory to the 4 per 1,000, and I know that Henry Miller, who lives down in that area, felt very positive about meetings with leadership in Mexico. Alex, you would certainly know more about that. But maybe it's a situation that they've signed, but like the memo hasn't gotten to the people who are actually making decisions.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Actually, Sudhir, the Regenerations training that I was at the Sierra Gorda.
Okay.
So Laura was there and Patty for a bit as well.
And she also mentioned that there's an upcoming agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico on soil carbon as a climate solution. I didn't get much details from her about that, but I'll follow up.
Yeah, let's follow up on that, because I didn't have the chance to speak to them very much. They were only there for a dinner one night. But do you think you could also copy me? I'd love to be in the loop on what that initiative is, because it's the first time I've heard of it. I know there's been initiatives with the CEC. It's a Canadian entity to bring together ranchers from US, Canada, and Mexico. So maybe it's related. I don't know. That's very interesting. Bueno.
Español.
Okay. ¿Quién quiere empezar a dar the conclusions? You can tell the conclusions in Spanish, maybe.
Okay, soy emocionada de trabajar con ustedes.
Muy bien. Perfect.
¿Quién más? We can do it in English too.
No sé.
Big remarks. Okay, well.
Good try.
Good try.
We can listen. We can listen to you.
We can listen and learn. Well, okay. If there's nothing else in English or Spanish, then I would say it's time to conclude. And thanks so much for joining.
¿Dónde están las cervezas?
Las cervezas.
En todos lados, everywhere.
Everywhere. Well, thanks everyone. I encourage you to share these invites to your friends and colleagues who may be interested in joining too. Yeah, and especially people who aren't necessarily plugged in with regeneration and revitalization movement, so that we can kind of get more people on board and hear their perspectives as well.
I think that that's an exceptionally important point, and that we have to do our best to go beyond the choir.
I didn't understand that.
I'm sorry. That was English idioms. Go beyond the choir. Speak to people that we don't usually speak to.
Okay.
About regeneration.
Yeah, I agree. I can figure out the ways to invite some people with that
in mind.
Yeah,
with that in mind.
And also, if you think you are interested in knowing something specific about anything in Mexico related, I can share something in the next call and try to invite some person that can.
That's great. Alex, do we have everybody's email who's on the call?
Yes, so everyone, I'll put it in the notes, but you're also connected by email already. I forwarded the link to all of you. So.
Oh, and one quick thing, Sudhir. I saw you briefly at I saw you during the whole National Press Club event in DC. I don't think we got a chance to meet, but I'm right here in Arlington. So if you'd like to get together sometime, I'd be happy to do so.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, and quickly, all you DC people, I'm planning to come and speak about my book.
Yay.
I'm talking to Phil about getting a time, so it'll be during the summer.
Say who Phil is, Judy. Say who Phil is.
And his last name.
Bogdanov.
Of course. Okay, thank you.
Phil is the director of our DC chapter, and Sudhir works closely with him.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll hopefully see you all soon.
Oh, great. Looking forward to it.
Congrats.